And the great councilman of the 1st District. Would you all please rise? Thank you very much. I want to see if the zoo director is such a good man and good smile. Oh, very good. Okay, good morning, everybody. It's great to be here for the Arts, Parks, Health, and Aging Committee. I'm joined by Mr. Reyes and Mr. Weston. Please be seated.
Thank you.
I don't know. I saw it on TV once. You know, remember when they did that on the thing?
Well, you should have had them give us a round of applause.
That's right.
Everybody give the chair of this committee, Tom LeBonge, a round of applause.
Oh, no, thank you very much.
Pretty weak.
Okay, due to another conflict in schedule, I'm going to call on number 5 first. 5 first, and ask the General Manager of the Parks Department and the Commission President and staff to please come to the center table. Our committee today is just hearing some reports. And Mr. Clerk, would you read it into the record?
Certainly. Item number 5 is a discussion of the Department of Recreation and Parks' current budget, the department's submittal for the mayor's recently released 2011-2012 proposed budget, potential service impacts, possible restructuring of department operations, and other related matters.
Okay, John Muckery, General Manager, Rec and Parks. I'll lead off. As you know, our budget is probably the most complex in the city in that we get funding from a variety of sources, property tax valuation, our own revenues. We do direct charges to people like the harbor. We also have a number of expenses to include over the last 3 years, indirect charges as part of the city's budget balancing exercise. And we all agree that we're in a budget crisis, so we're not going to hear to debate any of those issues. We're going to go through the practical aspects of this budget. First and foremost, I made a commitment last year, and I'll make this same commitment. Because the budget process takes so long, and we're already in the summer period, we're going to put on as many programs in the summer, hopefully as we did last year. So what we're going to probably have happen for this department is it will look like, starting July 1st, July, August, September, I'm going to be in the red. It's going to look like my expenditure is going to far exceed my budget allocation for the 12 months. What we will have to do is regroup during this 3-month period, Regina and I, my staff, working with your staffs, and figure out how we recoup those expenditures over the remaining 9 months of the fiscal year. And that's one of the complexities of this department. Summer happens right on the cusp of 2 fiscal years, so I can't very well put on programs through June 30th and then tell all the parents, hey, your summer camps are over. So we'll make that commitment as we go forward. There are a lot of issues in this budget. As we know, the city is facing extremely critical financial crisis. This budget makes certain assumptions, and I'll let Regina go into this. I want you all to know these assumptions. If they do not happen as we go forward, this department will have a deficit in the tune of $12 to $13 million. So, Regina, if you take over.
Good morning, committee members. Regina Adams, Executive Officer for Recreation and Parks. The mayor's proposed budget for fiscal year 2011-12 is a little over $179 million for the Department of Recreation and Parks. One of the things that it continues is that our department will continue to pay part of this indirect cost that the general fund used to pick up for us. The general fund is still picking up some of the costs for our department, but this budget increases it from the current fiscal year of about $38 million to almost $44 million. So back in fiscal year 2007-08 is when we first started having to pay part of our indirect costs. And so far from 2007-08...
Repeat that, please.
Back in fiscal year 2007-08 was the first year that we had to pay part of our indirect costs that the general fund used to pick up for our department. And coming forward to the current fiscal year that ends on June 30th of this year, we will have paid over $61 million toward our indirect costs that the general fund used to cover for us. One of the things we submitted a letter to the Budget and Finance Committee, which will be discussed this week in that committee. We also provided a copy to this committee. There were several exhibits that we had included. I hope you had a copy of it, but one of the main ones that was in there was Exhibit 3 on our report. And what that showed, it showed a breakdown of the $179 million proposed budget for us for the next fiscal year. Out of that, it shows that about over 24%, which is the $44 million I just mentioned off the top, will go toward our indirect costs. One of the changes there, besides the water and
Ms. Adams, that report that you referenced, I don't think any of us have.
we provided. We provided a copy. Yeah, okay.
It's at the clerk's office? Okay, Lisa's got... Okay, good, super. Just gonna... Let's see, make some copies, will you? How many we got? Need this. Well, I know Mr. Reyes needs one, Mr. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Does everyone have a copy?
He's ready for more.
If we have one more right now, that'd be good.
We're here.
Well, okay, good, okay.
I'm okay. I can wait for the copy, just roll.
Here, Lisa, we're good for right now. Here's Mr. Weston has one, Mr. Reyes has one. Committee has one. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. We'll make copies later. Thank you. Okay.
If you turn to Exhibit 3 in this report, what I was discussing here was that out of the $179 million proposed for our budget for the next fiscal year.
Yeah, I got it.
Does everyone have it? Okay. In Exhibit 3, what we show is the breakdown for our budget, and what we're trying to explain is that right off the top, if you look at the box that says spending/expenditures, indirect support costs, that's where I was mentioning that there was $44 million right off the top that we have to pay toward our indirect costs. This includes $16 million for water and electricity. We're being increased to almost $20 million toward our retirement and health benefit costs for ourselves, our employees. And also a new item in here is that we're going to have to pay for our trash services, which is $3.7 million. And we're also going to have to pay the second payment of the early retirement payout, which is $4.3 million. So right there, over 24% of our budget goes toward the indirects. Then the next one we have are dedicated costs. We also provide services for recreation and maintenance services for facilities that are located, that are owned by the Harbor Department, and they reimburse us for that. That's $7.2 million. We have El Pueblo landscaping, $100,000 that they pay us for, and the mayor continued $2 million for us to continue to do the city's public buildings landscaping. That's the other city facilities. So that was continued for $2 million in general funds. And a new item was $1 million in general funds was placed in there for us to continue to provide recreational and maintenance services at 7 housing authority sites. So that's $3 million that's in general funds. And then also, too, we have other mandated costs, such as for brush clearance, property taxes, and so forth. The bottom line is, at the bottom of this exhibit, you see that about 64% of our budget remains for us to provide our own programs and services and maintenance for our own facilities. So 36% of our budget right off the top is dedicated elsewhere. And that's what we wanted to lay out for you.
Where was it before? It was just picked up by the general
100%
fund?
of our budget before was for us to provide the services for our own facilities.
Right, but because of the business practices that are trying to be instituted by the mayor and previous mayors, now they have these chargebacks to the department. Previously, it was done in the
city's general fund.
Right, thank you.
Yes, it was covered in the city's general fund. So, and also, too, if you look at the last exhibit, we gave you a listing of some of the things that we no longer do or that we've drastically reduced. It says here a list of the services, reductions, and impacts over the last few fiscal years. These are things that we have gradually have been taken away or reduced in what we do and provide to the public. So we just provided a listing of those things for you. Now, one of the things that's also in our budget that we knew we were going to have a reduction is that we knew that our revenue target from the revenue fees and permits that we collect, we knew that was going to be reduced by about $2 million. And also the property tax assessment, which is the largest portion of our budget, we knew that that was going to drop by about $2.7 million. So right there, we were losing almost $5 million from our budget for the next fiscal year. Also, a part of our own budget, we are contributing toward our own budget $3.3 million. That is money that we had to make sure that we held on to so that we could fund our budget toward the next fiscal year. So that is also a reduction to ourselves. So we're already contributing, self-contributing over $3 million. We also knew that there were going to be revenue reductions and so forth. So what we've laid out for you here is what we think our budget looks like through this proposal. One of the big items here is that in our budget, and is that we have put in there for 36 furlough days, 26 to 36 furlough days. and that has been cut out of our salary account, which is $11.8 million. If the coalition agreement goes through, we don't know at this point what that amount would be, the adjustment, but we don't think that it would make up the full $11.8 million that has been taken from our budget. That will be a big impact for us and how we provide our services and the resources that we have. We don't know yet exactly how that's going to look, but that will be something that John will definitely be coming back and explaining to you and have to explain to the public what that's going to mean.
Mr. Sanders, the President of the Commission. Any
Well,
comment?
I appreciate the opportunity to join with John and Regina to talk with you and with the committee. We appreciate the oversight this committee provides and what it does for the work that the department does all year. I'm, of course, not a line officer there. As a commissioner, I have the opportunity to oversee and to assist in what's done. I don't exactly have a 35,000-foot view, maybe a 3,000-foot view. So it leads me to make the following comments. This is an austerity budget following an austerity budget that follows an austerity budget and one before, the year before that. The decisions that are made here, particularly as to recreation and parks, have a real impact on people. When we do cutbacks in other departments, it's rather indirect, even if we were to do cutbacks in police services so that there's fewer patrols or fewer officers. You may see over time a statistical increase in crime or whatever, but it would be over time and it would be not so easy to notice right away. What we do here, if it closes a rec center on a Tuesday, when it's always been open on Tuesdays, people know immediately. So it's sort of like the sense of smell right from the nose to the brain. What it means is that what we do here is what gives us the cutback impacts that constituents feel, is what gives us the fee increases that constituents feel. So I just want to say that we're all in this together. I don't mean any particular individual, but it's demoralizing often to the people who I watch working in the department that they're making tough decisions, and then when those tough decisions are made, the critique on the decisions is not always fair, and it's not always made after consultation with the department as to why those decisions were made. In the face of these austerity measures, we have to do what we can, and that's the direction from the Commission to the department, to provide as many of the services and facilities as we've always provided, particularly in the summer, as John said. And that's the commitment you heard him just make again. But there are going to be more reductions. We respond to those in several ways. We respond to the cutbacks first by seeking donations and partnerships. So you know that, as we reported to you a couple of months ago, we have reorganized this department to work with partnerships as much as possible to provide services to the people of Los Angeles that we can no longer provide ourselves. And that's coming together and it's happening. Also donations. And of course in both of these, as we have discussed with you, there are ways to achieve partnerships and donations, and those will involve acknowledging your partners and acknowledging your donors. We need your help in seeing that we can continue to do that, or we can't accomplish that goal. Of course, there's also cutbacks in services. People will decry them. They expect the services they received. Sometimes the department or the commission will make a mistake, and we listen to criticism. We have people come to our meetings. We listen carefully. And if we've done it wrong, we try to find another way to do it. But in the end, you can't provide as much for so much less. And finally, there's fee increases. We had a report by Controller Laura Chick a couple of years ago saying that the department was deficient in failing to scale up its fees for reality. We then had a directive from the mayor's office starting a couple of years ago saying that services should be self-supporting where there are fees. We've certainly done that completely as it pertains to golf, despite protests from golfers. And we'll have other fee increases that are necessary. We also have a needs assessment that was completed a year and a half ago, and one of its recommendations was that our fees were out of line with fees done in other city recreation and parks departments, and they should be brought into line. We have not brought them entirely into line, but there will continue to be fee increases, and we do this with reluctance. And we listen to the people who do express concerns, who we're paying less for the same thing they're being asked to pay. Of course they'll complain. but we need your understanding and support when we do the things that are, after all, the very direct, unavoidable consequences of the austerity budget we're now adopting.
Mr. Wesson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sanders, you referenced fees not being in line with other jurisdictions.
Right.
Could you give me some examples?
Yeah, well, what happens is we get a total book of fee structure for the year in July. And when we do that, we adopt them as a whole. We can tweak this one or that. When we looked at the golf fee increases last year, we had people complaining. Seniors were being bumped up $2 on greens fees, and we had a long line of people saying they'll never play golf again. We did ask that the department do a study of what fees were in other places and comparative study, and such a study was provided to us. I can't recite you the numbers. But
I'd love to see a summary of...
We'd be delighted to
that.
provide it to you, John.
One of the things that we don't do is, and that, directive isn't for the departments, is to go after full cost recovery. We don't do that because, of course, we would price our customers, our patrons out of the market. So that's one of the things we don't do. We do increase the fees, but we never try to go for full cost recovery, except for golf. Golf is totally offline right now, which means it has to be self-sufficient. And in this current year's budget that's about to come to an end, on top of them covering all of their costs, their directs and indirects, they also, too, are contributing $500,000 toward the Recreation and Parks budget. For the new fiscal year in the mayor's proposed budget, that increases to $1 million that they're going to have to contribute. So that means that on top of them covering all their costs for all of their employees, all of their materials and so forth, they also have to come up with an additional $1 million to contribute to the department.
Oh, I should say one other thing about golf. We have commissioned at the same time an independent consultant to study the future management of golf operations, to advise us on best practices as to whether we should continue to self-manage all the courses, or any of the courses, or some of the courses, or whatever, or whether it would be better to bring in a contract operator.
I think that's smart, to at least look at it. I think that's
If I may,
And I'd just like to see the study on the fees.
if I may, this question is a lot more complex than benchmarking against another municipality. 86% of my budget or more goes to direct labor. My cost of our employees, they're all union employees, they're all paid on a pay scale, the city pay scale. If you look at other municipal governments, they do not provide direct services. They contract that out. So when you ask me why so-and-so is cheaper, it seems cheaper, but remember, their internal costs are a lot less expensive.
Yeah.
This department was established over 100 years ago to provide subsidized recreation services to the citizens of LA. The model was there for over 100 years. This economy has changed our business model. And we're willing to participate in that, but we all need to understand, under that model, less money means less services.
Now, I get that. Now, my last question is, I know that I've spoken with the President Sanders and John, I think, where it relates to their desire to create partnerships and bring folk in to, dedicate this field or what have you. And we've been having some, I don't want to say pushback, differences of opinion with the city attorney's office. Have we been able to work through some of those things, or?
They have not yet been resolved to our satisfaction. The city attorney did state that there is a doctrine of government speech, and they created outlines that express, in the city attorney's view, a highly limited exception that would allow certain kinds of signage under government speech, that where the limitations seem to us to be such that it would not allow for adequate recognition of donors in the manner in which it's been done. What we'd like to do is not make any change in the way we've always done things. We're looking to be able to continue to recognize donors as we always have for many years. The interpretation that would interfere with that was actually a new interpretation given to us just last October. We would like to have a situation where we can recognize donors in the manner in which we always have. This has been greeted in certain quarters by members of the public in ways that do not reflect our intent. We have absolutely no intention by anyone on the commission or anywhere else to start erecting billboards in the parks or other sorts of hyperbole that has characterized conversations about this. The same freedom to continue, as always have, to recognize donors is desired by the Little Leagues, who have been asked to take down the signs that they've had up for years, and by the zoo, who've been asked to stop recognizing donors in the manner in which they've always recognized donors.
Yeah, I would hope, Mr. Chairman, that you, as the leader of this committee, would take the lead in some attempt to resolve those issues.
I'm working with Mr. Reyes, who's very involved as well.
And I know, Ed,
Right,
I mean,
we're working together. So that'd be good.
certain things to me are just stupid, and when they're stupid, we need to fix them, and I understand, and we are going through very difficult times, but anyway, I'm done.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Wesson. Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to acknowledge and thank you for your hard work. On several occasions, we've had discussions about allocation of resources, and it's been very clear that the notion of even playing field does not always exist in our city, and so how we attribute resources to create venues and places for our kids that have great need, it's obvious to me that the resources have been driven to where I think they need to be established, given all the challenges we have with dropout rates and violence and displacement of families, etc. And so I just want to articulate that the role you play is multiple in nature. I believe Rec and Parks programs fulfill a huge need in the attempt to create a quality of life that actually makes us question what kind of city are we. And when we start answering that question, you look at the services, you say, well, we have the ability to show, and I don't want to sound too corny here, but to show some love for our kids that truly, without that support, would probably end up as a statistic, either in jail or something worse. That being said, the past couple of years, we've looked at how we improve our efficiencies. We looked at fees at our soccer fields and how adults were coming in and removing our children from the playing fields because someone was paying a higher price. I believe we put some controls to address that. I see us having great venues that can produce funds that could help our programs, but we have to understand the legal ramifications and limitations of those. The signage is one big issue that we need to address, and perhaps we should have a report back once the chair and this committee can get a better sense of what is real and what isn't from the city's point of view, city attorney's point of view. And then after, maybe we should make some decisions from a policy level.
I remember years ago, Coppertown, and I think it was Coppertone, did all the trash cans at the state beaches
They did.
because the state couldn't dump the trash cans. With that revenue, they could dump the trash cans, but that's something.
I want
You know,
to
that was
address,
something you-
Wait a second, the city attorney has a...
I request that if this body is going to request a report back, that you include the city attorney's office. We have provided advice on deciding...
I'm going to do a formal motion on that, so we'll follow your lead on the motion, because I want to make sure it's
My
transparent.
statements are more about the environment we're in,
if
and we'll go into policy discussion with directives as
If I
appropriate by the
might
chair.
address your particular concern, it's also a concern of this department, is the equity issue.
Right.
Embedded in our budget, you will find 10 parks that we were taking completely offline. They're going to be self-sufficient.
Enterprise parks.
We've taken those out because they're going to pay their direct costs for direct labor, not their indirects, but the money we're saving from that will be going into the inner city parks. I also want to assure this committee and the citizens who are listening, we've never turned away a child from any of our programs for not being able to afford it. We actually give scholarships. That's part of the mission of this department. And so if you ever hear that a child is being taken from a program for cost, you have my phone number.
When we look at this new model, because of the best business practices, how we allot for those gaps is a critical question we need to address in a manner that I think speaks to the natural strengths of our markets. And to give an example, I see our parks, many of our parks are in what they call food deserts, places where markets won't go, where they don't serve fruit, where they don't serve vegetables, they don't serve meats. It's fast food all the time, every hour. Why we don't work with the type of entrepreneurs that can provide those types of nutrients in our parks with some kind of monetary exchange is an area we should explore. I mean, these are the types of opportunities that I see, given the high volume and density levels of these areas. Huge numbers of people there that would create a great business model for that type of work. When I look at the budget, I see there's $2 million allocated to HACLA. My question there is, and I'm shifting gears here, I didn't see Mead Housing as one of the sites that's going to be taken care of by the department when it comes to the $2 million, and I'm wondering, is that an oversight, or is there a reason for that?
Housing takes care of the external of all our buildings. We have a direct appropriation from the general fund in this year's budget, $1 million that will be going to the housing sites for programming and our internal costs.
So Mead Housing was not considered, or was it an oversight, or is it to be included in the future? How is the Mead Housing? Mead Housing, it's in the, right next to the LA River off of Main Street?
I don't think that's...
Mead, Walter Mead Housing,
Walter Mead.
right, on Main Street.
No,
It's a housing authority site?
these are the 7 sites that we were already providing services. Because of the change of us having to now pay toward part of the indirects, per the city attorney opinion, that we were brought to the attention of the mayor's office and the CAO's office that we could no longer continue to provide those services without being reimbursed for it. It's the same situation that happened with the sites for the harbor department. We were already providing services at those sites as well, but before we had received general funds to do that. And when those funds were being taken away, that's what we have stated. Harbor Department was always paying for those services. They were paying it to the city, but it wasn't coming to the Department of Recreation and Parks. We didn't bring it up before because we were getting millions of dollars in addition to our own appropriations. We were also getting that from the general fund. This is the same type of situation. We're still providing at the same locations that we were at before, 7 sites. It's just that now we can no longer do it without being reimbursed.
If you're asking me philosophically, I'd like to do it all. I think this department's strength is we're embedded in the community. My employees live and work in the community. They're part of the fabric of the community. I think this department 365 days a year does provide the support to the community. It's an alternative to everything that we know is bad on the streets. So philosophically, I hate to see 1 cent cut, because I see we are part of basically the policing of the city. We are part of that. And as we make these cuts, we will have less services out there. There will be areas of need that will suffer.
So I'll ask you probably after the meeting, but I want to understand why Woodland Mead was not included. If it was a budget issue, then I want to understand that.
Okay.
Line of thinking.
We'll get a question for Mr. Reyes. Mr. Wesson.
Yeah, I have one last question. When I started to impersonate a golfer, Mr. Chairman, I did it on county courses. On county courses, they allow 5 individuals to play together at one time. In fact, I have a group of individuals. I play with my wife and 3 buddies, and we've been doing this for years. But whenever I play at a city course, one of those individuals is not allowed to play with us. So I know I had mentioned it before, and I don't know if on its face, it would appear that you would make more money, but that's not necessarily the case. But I would like to hear somebody look into...
We'll look into that.
In a perfect world, I think it's faster when you play with 4 people.
Yeah.
But I think when you play with 5, that it doesn't make it much longer. And if you could just afford individuals the opportunity to play with 5, we might make some additional revenue. So
Mostly it's a linguistic problem. If we have 5 people, how do we call it a foursome?
you call it a FISOM.
Oh.
Very good. Now, Mr. Reyes.
One last question. I believe, Mr. Murphy, you were about to address this, and we kind of went off track, but the 10 participating rec centers that are going to generate their own fees, which centers are they?
Those are such as Pan Pacific. A lot of them are in the valley areas. We looked at the ones that we thought that could generate revenue, that were already generating a lot of revenue, and we thought that they would be the ones that they could also generate even more, so that they could cover more of their cost.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just some things to this committee. I bet Mr. Clerk has the highest attendance of all 3 members all the time. That shows that we're passionate for arts, parks, health, and aging, and all the good things that we try to represent, including our cultural affairs and the library department. We called you here because we know this is an urgent time. Use us to help your voice. Keep us posted. I'm very interested in the enterprise parks issue that you spoke of. I did see all the stuff that you're not doing, but I want to same couple of sheets on what have you done to restructure, to show that you've had to re-engineer your processes, things of this nature. Very proud of the foundation, but want to make sure it's transparent as we work forward on that issue here, and want to work more on the issue of indirect costs, because I sometimes think it costs to do indirects more than it's worth in some ways. Last thing I want to say, because of the rains this year, the brush is beautiful. In a matter of a month, it went from ankle high to knee high to hip high to shoulder high, and it's higher than me yesterday on one trail in Griffith Park near Beacon Hill. Do you have money for brush clearance this year and next year?
Yes.
Because I want to make sure the fire potential, which this year is the 4th anniversary of the Griffith Park fire, 2 things led to it. Your good brush clearance program, which all parks in the hills should be dealt with, whether it's Baldwin Hills or the Hollywood Hills or El Sereno Hills, and then the other thing was the water from Water and Power. John?
Yeah, I don't want to mislead anybody. Our brush clearance is mandatory in and around buildings and private residence.
Got it.
If it's on a trail, we don't clear that.
Oh, no, I know. I didn't mean that. I could make it through there. I don't need you to clear that. I'm a man. I love you, John. I love Recreation Parks. We all do. So we thank you. We may call you back. I know it's budget hearing, but if there's a voice that you need to put out or to we're here to help.
Can I make one comment about an issue that some people have had concern about, and that is fee increases as applied to community gardens, just so I explain where this situation sits.
Okay.
They were part of a broad July fee structure, as is adopted each year. We heard no voices against it at the time, even though others came to talk about their other subjects, like golfers. When the fees that would still not be cost recovery became visible because bills become due in November, we heard voices of complaint at our meetings by people who participate in the community gardens. We have 9 sets of community gardens in the city. The department loves community gardens. The department is what created the community gardens. The commission heard these complaints and sent this back to the drawing boards and felt that the fee structure was inadequate to the differences of situation, being an across-the-board flat increase. We instructed requested the management to come up with a different proposal. Management looked at it, did a study, came up with a very professional proposal about a month and a half ago. We heard more people speaking about that. We considered it. It's been sent back for further refinement, and now it looks like it is reaching a conclusion that will come before us. And the conclusion we expect, the one based on the drafts we've seen, is that of the 9 sets of community gardens, 7 of them, at the request of the commission, will be self-governing. They will pay only $2 a year per plot. Only 2 of them will continue to be governed by the department because we would like them to be self-governed too, but the gardeners among them are not yet sufficiently organized.
And what would be helpful if we had a one sheet on that,
Right.
which is very good, and we're going to call these other departments up. Thank you all. I know you have a 9:15. Regina?
Yes, I was just say, because we have another meeting, if you could please take item number 10 next.
Oh, well, okay. For the requester on item number 10. Very good, Regina. That's why you're who you are.
Thank you.
Call number 10, please.
Item number 10 is a city administrative officer report relative to the proposed donation agreement between the city and the Los Angeles Neighborhood Initiative for the development and construction of 3 new parks.
Great.
Good morning, Veronica Salumbidas with the Office of the CAO. The donation agreement with the Los Angeles Neighborhood Initiative is for the development and construction of 3 new parks. It's the Normandy Cordova Park, West Boulevard Park, and the Western Gage Park. The Department of Recreation and Parks and the Los Angeles Neighborhood Initiative partnered to identify, develop, and prepare grant applications for projects eligible for funding under Proposition 84, and 3 of the projects that Lanny submitted received grant funding. They received $762,500 for Normandy Cordova, $518,200 for West Boulevard, and $514,000 for Western Gage, for a total of $1.8 million. The proposed donation agreement before you is necessary because the state grant agreements require either a 20-year or a 30-year land tenure.
And the CAO supports it?
Yes.
City attorney approved it? Okay.
It's subject to city attorney approval.
Subject to approval of city attorney. Mr. Scholl, you're okay with it?
Yeah, we initiated it. Thank you.
Very good. So, members, any questions? Okay, so ordered. Thank you. Next item, I'd like to call the Los Angeles Zoo, number 6.
Item number 6 is a discussion of the Los Angeles Zoo and Greater Los Angeles Zoo Association's current budget, the department's submittal for the mayor's recently released 2011-2012 proposed budget, potential service impacts, possible restructuring of the department operations, and other related matters.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. Ms. Barrett.
Good morning, council members. John Lewis, General Manager at the Los Angeles Zoo and Botanical Gardens. Our budget going forward, as recommended by the mayor, results in a total of about $18.284 million, of which the zoo produces $13.4 million in revenue. We support our direct operating budget by about 74% of the cost. This year, we are recommending a fee increase, which is $2 across the board, and we've done this to help the zoo make up the additional cost from the early retirements, the additional costs that are being assigned to the departments for the various benefits to the employees, and other costs that were being assigned to the departments. We chose to use the admissions fee instead of other potential fees because it's the direct way that we can approach the visitors and the users of the park. As you know, there's been a lot of discussion about charging for parking in our parking lot, and we actually had a study that was done this past year to look at the feasibility of that. And for a variety of reasons, which have to do with the infrastructure that's not in the parking lot that allows us to put in patrol booths and other mechanisms for charging, the additional staffing that would be needed to manage those systems, agreements with other departments in the area, particularly the Auditor for free parking, and then the idea of charging for parking right at the admissions gate. That was kind of the only alternative that we were left with. Every time we presented that to groups, there was a lot of concern about anxiety and arguments and, why am I having to pay at the admissions window when passive users of the parking lot don't have to pay? So at the end of the day, the zoo's recommendation was to avoid the additional parking fee, and instead of a $1 increase, recommend a $2 increase for the users of the zoo to achieve these revenues. So that's kind of how we came to the decision to charge for parking, at admissions instead of parking. We are estimating 1.6 million visitors this coming year, which is part of our budget base. We also were able, in addition to the tens of millions that GLAZA is raising for capital projects at the zoo, they've been successful in receiving a grant from the Gluck Foundation, which will support staffing in our children's zoo area, where we have the petting corral where the kids and the families can interact with the domestic animals. We had to close that down initially because of the budget cuts in the last couple of years. Then we were able to reopen it on a limited basis using our volunteers and docents. But now with this grant, we will be able in the next fiscal year to open it full time and give it back to the public. So that's a great grant, and we appreciate GLAZA's efforts in that regard. This next year, we also are opening our new reptile and amphibian facility, which we're calling the LAIR, the Living Amphibians, Invertebrates, and Reptile Facility. We think that, along with the new carousel at the zoo that's supposed to open this summer, and the number of other amenities that will be happening this next fiscal year, we should be able to achieve the 1.6 million in attendance that we're projecting. We are in dire straits, I'll use that phrase, on our staffing. We're at an all-time low for the zoo at 228 positions, and so we would ask that, going forward with this budget year, that we be allowed to manage within our budget with our staffing as we were this year, thanks to the motion from the chair. That allows us, particularly as it relates to the animal collection, to not have to downsize the animal collection to allow for give and takes and attrition of staff. It allows us to keep the collection where it is.
You're exempt from managed hiring.
We are.
You want to continue that?
Yes.
Now, do we have to re-up that up July 1st? Okay. The care for the animals is key.
Yeah. I would just amplify, and I know we don't need to go into detail, but again, for the zoo, the whole issue of donors, not so much donor recognition, but sponsorship recognition is very important to the zoo as well. We watched $250,000 walk this fiscal year because of that decision, and I think there are ways to meet the sensitivities of the city and the ordinances, but still allow us to recognize people that are willing to support the operations of the city.
On that issue, when we look at the notion of discretion, how you choose to place signs in recognition of contributors and donors, given the sight lines within the zoo and sight lines from outside the zoo, what's being questioned? Is it the size of the signs, the verbiage? What's being questioned? I'm familiar with the park issue, and I understand the intent of the commission, and I agree with them. I question the interpretation from the advice we've been given. But from the zoo's point of view, can you answer that question in terms of, as stewards, I don't see you putting billboards everywhere because it takes you from the zoo. So can you just elaborate a little bit about what is it that made that money that you cited walk away? What was it? Type of verbiage? Was it placement, or was it just the fact that it was interpreted as a billboard?
And this is just my opinion based on the descriptions, obviously not a legal opinion. We were just told that at this point, as the city wrestles with the whole issue of signage and permitting of signage and enforcing that signage, that we were asked not to identify sponsors on signs within the zoo, and it became a question of what is free speech, what is advertisement, and what is not advertisement. In the past, what we've done is just try to identify the corporations or individuals that were making the donations. We were sensitive because, as you say, council member, we would even tell those potential donors that we didn't want it to become the dominant part of the zoo visit, but we certainly wanted to recognize their support of the institution in the city. I mean, we were told from trash cans on up we weren't allowed to do it until this issue was reconciled.
Okay. On a different subject?
City attorney.
I can respond in part to that. Although I didn't work with this gentleman specifically with the zoo, I have had some involvement with the helping to establish or putting forth a proposed sign policy for rec and parks, and I think some of the issues are related. And I've given advice to the Rec and Park Board on sign policies and sign regulations. One of the things that we're most concerned with in our office is the fact is that any sign policy that's put forth for whatever department, that it be consistent and compatible with existing sign laws so that we can protect the city from future litigation and liability. One of the things that we're concerned about is that our existing sign laws prohibits off-site advertising and commercial advertising. And one of the things that we have put forth in our recommendation of a policy to Rec and Parks is that the signs, the sponsorship signs, simply thank and acknowledge sponsors for their donors
Right.
their donations to the parks and perhaps in this case to the zoo. So we will continue to work with the zoo department. I believe your counsel was Dov LaSalle, and we will continue to work with him and make sure he's included in the loop in the discussion about the sign policy. And we'll report back to this body, if you request, on the proposed sign policy that we have put together for the Department of Recreation and Parks. We simply reached an impasse. As you heard, they want to continue with their current practices, which we've advised to a certain extent violate the existing sign regulations.
I appreciate the advice and the guidance. I think we have come to a place, and I would just call it a gray area, as to format, as to size of lettering, interpretation of cartoon characters, details like that I think we need to perhaps either in closed session or, if the chair so chooses. But I think it's a very sensitive issue. I've been working on the sign ordinance for almost 10 years now through Plum citywide. And so there's some very delicate court decisions that we need to be aware of that I believe reflects your concern of
You're correct.
how we approach that.
There are court decisions that have given us clear guidance as to what's legal
Right.
and isn't, and we want to make sure we don't run afoul of those, because if we do, I guarantee
Right.
we will be setting the city up for
And
liability.
I can just conclude by saying still some gray area I think we could work, but I understand exactly where you're coming from, and I appreciate it. My last point is really about the visitors. Can we get a report back on, for example, high schools or elementary schools? Which of these schools come from impoverished areas? We have anywhere between 30 to 60% poverty. If we can understand who is attending, how many of these schools are visiting, how often do they visit, I think it would give us a greater sense of how it's being used, who is benefiting, sends a clearer picture as to, is it a city zoo? Is it a regional zoo? Is it, how big is this, given our tourist industry as well? So in that mix, where do our constituents fit? And for me, because of my district is at 40% at or below poverty, I'd like to understand how there's 5 districts in our city that have anywhere between 30 to 60% poverty in their respective neighborhoods. How are those districts participating? Do they have access? And how proactive are we in bringing those kids into that experience?
We'd be happy to produce that. And just as a reminder, the school groups that schedule their tours at the zoo in LAUSD, the tours are free. The kids don't pay any. And we also have a fund that helps support transportation, because I know transportation is a big part of their cost for field trips. So we try to do those things to facilitate the business.
And I truly appreciate that, but as I see the educational infrastructure crumble, and we see what's happening with the state, my fear is those that are most in need are probably the last ones to be heard. And so I just want to get that connectivity.
The last thing, Mr. Chair, if I can, just briefly, in the status report, just as a reminder, there is the recommendation from the CAO regarding the pieces that would be part of an RFP for continuing to look at privatizing the zoo. And I would just ask that not be lost in this budget process, and the sooner, if possible, after this committee and Budget and Finance review it, it could be brought to council so that the CEO can start working on that. We need to keep that process moving.
The process of,
Privatizing the zoo.
you got it, or the public-private partnership is what it is. It's always going to be a public zoo, but to get the public, to do the county method of what they've done at LACMA, what they've done at the Hollywood Bowl. The Hollywood Bowl, you know who owns the Hollywood Bowl? The County Recreation and Parks Department. They have a relationship with the Philharmonic. That's their public-private partner. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you. We'll get through all those numbers, all those schools, and it'd be great.
Thanks.
Now, I'd like to call the Library Department up right now. The Library Department will give a brief
Councilmember?
report.
Council member,
Yes.
should we go ahead and move to the commissioner at this time?
No, I want to get the Library Department, because they got to open the libraries at 10 o'clock.
Okay. Item number 4 is a discussion of the Los Angeles Public Library's current budget, the department's submittal for the mayor's recently released 2011-2012 proposed budget, potential service impacts, possible restructuring of department operations, and other related matters.
Very good. Mr. Gomez?
Thank you very much, Councilman. What's being distributed to you is a copy of the memo that we've drafted for the Budget and Finance Committee. Our budget will be heard by that committee on Thursday, this coming Thursday on the 28th. Just to summarize for you, as you know, the voters approved Measure L last March, and because of that, there'll be an increase to the funding from the general fund revenues to change the formula for our charter allocation. What this will do for us over the next 4 years, it'll allow us to restore services to the 2009-2010 levels. We're pleased that in the coming fiscal year, we expect to be able to restore 6 days of library service, the 6th day of service at all 73 libraries. Our target date to do that is this coming July, mid-July. Because that's new money, we want to make sure that we have adequate staff members on board. We want to be able to train them and get them situated in different locations across the city. The Measure L, as a reminder, provides an increment to our general fund allocation. In the coming fiscal year, it'll be about $13.4 million. And according to the legislation of Measure L, that money is divided up. Approximately 55% of it goes to reimburse the general fund for related costs, and 45% of that goes to support direct costs for library operation. In the coming fiscal year, there is a little nuance to the $6 million that we'll get as the 45%. About $4.3 million of that money is going to be to help pay for cost of living adjustments. It'll leave a remainder of about $1.7 million to restore 6 days service. With limited funds, of course, that is going to mean that we're going to have to use as needed part-time employees to help restore the 6th day of service. What's not known to us, as was brought up earlier by some of the groups, is that the Coalition of Unions is considering a proposal for some concessions. If that goes through, that may impact our bottom line a little bit. About 96% of our employees are members of the Coalition of Unions. Also, we understand that if that doesn't go through, that there is a proposal from the mayor that there would be furloughs citywide. We are asking for an exemption to furloughs. If that does occur, we would not be able to open the 6th day of service if we are subject to furloughs. Perhaps one of the most important parts for us is, in order for us to bring in the workforce that we need, we're going to have a blanket unfreeze to hire our part-time librarians, clerk typists, and messenger clerks in order to restore that 6th day of service.
Part-time employees?
Yes, that's right. As needed part-time. Just to let you know, our current fiscal year, we are paying about $22 million in indirect costs back to the general fund. As a result of this new budget, we'll be paying about $29 million, so about $7 million more in the coming fiscal year. Over time, I think things will settle in much better for us over time as the rate increases for Measure L over the next 4 years. We want to work very closely with the CAO's office to make sure that we have the needed flexibility to find greater efficiencies and service provider alternatives for things related to our maintenance, building services, our custodial services, and landscape services as examples. We think we can do that. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I have Chris Morita here, our Assistant General Manager as well.
Mr. Wessons? Mr. Reyes?
The libraries, how are they coordinating with the local schools in terms of programming and dealing with the issues that we see occurring in our school system? The libraries tend to be almost like the natural gravitation towards services that the school districts are cutting. Have you felt that pressure, and what is that like?
We have, Councilman, as a matter of fact, we've become in many neighborhoods the de facto school library because many of the school libraries and public schools have been closing down. There have been layoffs of library media specialists, as they call them in the libraries. They don't have the money for collections, so many of our public libraries have taken on that role. We have within each library's catchment area, those libraries are assigned schools that they actually do visits to those schools, outreach, school visits into the library visits by the schools into the libraries as well. That number, that activity has diminished in the last year a tiny bit because we had layoffs, of course, and there was a big movement of staff because of trying to fill gaps due to layoffs as well as early retirement.
Has that required more security in terms of making sure the libraries are safe for our kids, and given what we've been through the past month with the other issues with the computer, how has that impacted your security budget?
Well, I'm very proud of the staff work that we have, our children's librarians and our young adult librarians who are in libraries. They are well-trained. And yes, we do have some security issues in different locations. It depends on locations, but for the most part, working closely with GSD and the security forces there, I think we're able to keep pretty much a lid on any issues from getting much bigger. As you know, we have in some locations, though, there's been some problems with graffiti and other concerns, but overall, I think that we're doing a good job of holding it together.
Could you give us a report back on number of incidents in different libraries? I think the coordination between our senior lead officers and our librarians and the issue of safe havens in our libraries is critical. Depending on General Services Department officers, there's not that many. And given the gravity of some of the concerns I've had in my district in certain locations, especially during the hours of 2 and 4 or 3 to 6, when there's the latchkey situation with many of our youth, the libraries are overwhelmed with high numbers. And so I want to see what is the level of problems and or reports. And I know reports don't reflect the reality because many folks don't report incidents, but at least it'll give us a thumbnail sketch of what's out there, and probably calls for us to be able to coordinate with our senior lead officers a little bit better.
Sir, are you asking for a report that would highlight any of the breaches in security or...
How will you define security concerns? How is it that you listed, identify it, something that makes a student uncomfortable or a parent concerned as to their children's safety and or the individual safety?
Maybe the next time you're here, maybe you could bring the head of security with you just to give us an overview. How many cards in Los Angeles?
1.4 million.
1.4
million.
1.4 million. Very good. Very good. So
can they just include graffiti issues? Graffiti?
Vandalism. Okay. Anyway, 1.4, that's a great number, Chris. Okay. How many's have gone up since Mr. Gomez became the librarian?
And I don't know.
And I know.
Smart woman. We know it's gone up.
I know. Very good, Martin. All right, keep going. Get that library open. You got 22 minutes. Okay. Next item I just want to take here, items 11 and 12 are some business items, cultural affairs. Can we call those up right now? Mr. Stone, you had a card? Oh, it's not in the pile, but it's on the side.
Oh, okay.
I got it. Roy Stone.
Sorry, thank you.
If you can make it 1 minute, fine. If you have to use 2, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I am
Got it.
always try to be very fast. I want you to know some issues that we're having about the staffing and the opening of libraries on Mondays. We all want that. We're all very happy about Measure L. It's not enough money to open every library on Monday in July. That's as-needed staff. That's part-time people. You're concerned about safety, so are we. We're concerned about services, too. Adding an additional short bit of a substitute librarian and a substitute clerk, a little bit of time, is not going to make it work. It's not going to be safe. It's not going to be good service. We have a lot of issues with this. And we're dealing with management. We're going to be bringing it to you, too. It's not enough money to provide this service all on one day in July. It's got to be phased in. It's got to have real staff.
Thank you very much. Suggested to phase in the Prop L approved by the voters. Thank you very much for your comment. Let's go to item number 11 real quick.
Item number 11 is the Department of Cultural Affairs report relative to approval to apply for a $15,000 grant from the California Arts Council for the Music LA program.
Good morning, Olga Garay, Executive Director of the City of Los Angeles Department of Cultural Affairs. This is a grant that we apply for every year, and we usually get the full amount of what we request. The monies are used to support our very popular Music LA program that
Very
goes
good.
around
Any
the
questions? We support it. We just need to get more money. But anyway, we'll take the 15,000. We thank the California Arts Council for that. So recommend approval unanimous. Next item.
The next item is request for submitting a grant to the National Endowment for the Arts. It's a brand-new initiative called Our Town, which uses funds to help catalyze cityscapes and communities by using the arts in conjunction with things like mass transit and cultural tourism and all sorts of activities to try to promote a more sort of stabilized and sustainable environment using the arts.
Are we doing that now with the grant?
We are applying for the grant. So if we get the money, it would be for a major project that we're going to do in Watts. And it would be to work to create a visitor center at a historic train station that's right next to the metro station at Watts, and then to create 2 artist paths using artists that work with environmental kinds of art making. So there will be a path to the Watts Towers and a path to the Martin Luther King Shopping Center. So it would be really to work with, we're going to work with streetscapes.
You're working with Ms. Hahn on this?
Yes.
Very good. So when you come to council, have a little quick visual you can throw up on that screen.
Okay, we can do that.
Any other questions? That grant is
It's at
$250,000.
$250,000 is the maximum we could apply for.
Great. Okay, recommend approval on that. And also, since you're sitting there, go to item number 2.
Okay. So,
Item number
go ahead. Sorry, Rich.
Item number 2 is a discussion of the Department of Cultural Affairs current budget, the department's submittal for the mayor's recently released 2011-2012 proposed budget, potential service impacts, possible restructuring of department operations, and other related matters.
Thank you. As you know, the primary funding source for the Department of Cultural Affairs is the transient occupancy tax. We get 1% of the 14% that's collected whenever anybody stays in a hotel in the city of Los Angeles. That typically creates a budget of about anywhere from $8 to $10 million for our organization, depending obviously on what the occupancy rate is for that year. This year, there has been an increase in TOT revenues projected. So although we're still trying to finalize the final number with the CAO, we think it's in the range of just under $1 million more in revenues for this coming fiscal year. However, because of budgetary increases by things like obligatory charges of the cost of living increases and health and things like that, the department won't actually see a raise in the TOT revenues that it can utilize for programs and to distribute in grants, et cetera. That money will be part of our obligation to the city of Los Angeles to keep the department operating. I will say that one major accomplishment this coming fiscal year is that in previous years, although the TOT revenue covers the bulk of our expenses, all of our salaries, all of our related costs, overhead, all the grants that we make, the art centers and facilities, other facilities that we manage. There has been about $500,000 or so that the City of Los Angeles General Fund has contributed for our related costs, and for the first time in FY 11-12, we will be off the general fund completely. So as of this coming fiscal year, we will be totally funded by the TOT revenues that are collected.
And you're going to be able to manage within that budget, although not as good as you would like to, but you're
Correct.
going to be able to manage with the budget. Mr. Wesson, Mr. Reyes?
I mean, we figured that it obviously will mean a shrinkage to our programs, but at the same time, we will hopefully not have to go through the strum and drung of every year trying to make a case for why the department should still be part of the city family, which is very, not only is it demoralizing for the arts community that we serve, and as you saw last year, hundreds of people showed up at City Hall.
Very good. Mr. Reyes has a question.
Yes.
1% art fees that are generated from private development.
The arts development fee, yes. As you know, we have three primary sources of funds from the City of Los Angeles. The TOT, 1% of the 14% collected. We also get 1% of any private development that is generated in the City of Los Angeles. It's over $500,000 except for housing. And that, again, depends on the market, but typically it's been around $8 million. The portfolio has been about $8 million. In addition, we get 1% of the public work improvement art program, which is the city's development. So anytime that a police station or an animal shelter or a bridge is built by the city, we also get 1% of that. And so between the arts development fee and the public percent for art, our portfolio has been hovering around $19 million of projects that we undertake through those sources.
If I may, Mr. Chair, if we can get a report back on what is in the pipeline now. I do know it's obvious through our economy that projects are not as prolific as they once were maybe 4 years ago.
Yes.
But everything runs in cycles. So I'd like to see what is in front of us now.
We can report back to you next time that the committee meets.
Please.
Okay, and we'll look at some of that. Mr. Clerk, you have that all down as requested, Mr. Reyes. Thank you very much.
Okay.
We're going to now call item number 7. Continue to work with your community as well, Ms. Garay.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Item 7.
Item number 7 is a discussion of the Department on Disability's current budget, the department's submittal for the mayor's recently released 2011-2012 proposed budget, potential service impacts, possible restructuring of department operations, and other related matters.
Good morning. Regina Houston Swain, Department on Disability. Basically, the department's budget reflects a $23,000 deficit from last year. The salary accounts basically remain the same. We have 2 vacancies. A recent vacancy, which is a senior accountant position, which we definitely need to replace that person in order to continue operations. And our ADA compliance officer position has been vacant for the past 2 years. And I would highly recommend that as soon as funds are identified, that this position be filled.
Would you like to add that at all?
No, not at all. I'm Tony Abraham, the budget director.
Right. But there's one key position that you need to get filled, the accounting.
The accountant position needs to be filled right away, and as soon as funds are identified, the ADA compliance officer position should be filled.
Okay, so would you let me know on that? And on the ADA compliance, I really want that, because I hear businesses have complained that lawyers are walking into businesses and just throwing lawsuits up to businesses if they're off by inches or they don't know. I want city inspectors to give people an inspection and then give them time to complete that, as opposed to some lawyer coming in, working on that. So, we'll work on that as well. Please be in touch with me right away to identify that so I can work with the CAO's office.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you very much,
Thank
both of
you.
you. And Mr. Simon, thank you very much. All right, Carrie Brodus has a public comment on item 7. Where are they? Yeah. Okay.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Mr. Chair and other council members and committee members. I'll be brief. My name is Carrie Broaddus, and I am the Executive Director of Women Alive Coalition. We represent individuals living with HIV and AIDS, and that population of clients is aging rapidly. Also, I heard earlier about the new business model. For HIV and AIDS, particularly among the aging population and those individuals who are at risk, we need to come up with a new prevention model. And within the disability department is the AIDS coordinator's office. And one of the things that we need to be very mindful of is that as that population age, we need to find new ways to develop economic and community development models that help them gain skillful employment. Through the framework of disability and health. Because more and more as this population age, we need to think about the resources that they're going to need. Just as you're wrestling with the budget, well, you have people out there that are wrestling with a budget too, trying to determine how am I going to supplement my income now as it relates to the shrinking dollars, as it relates to AIDS drug assistance program, housing, even food. And so what we propose is that as you deliberate these budgets and decisions, that we need to think in terms of the population of aging, HIV and AIDS, and that there needs to be a model that is steeped in community development and economic development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Reyes has a question.
One quick question. When we look at, given your presence in the organization you work with, are there models that you are familiar with, that other cities are using, that speaks to the objective you stated?
Well, for Women Alive, we're currently utilizing a model that is based upon a peer educational model that helps individuals be trained in HIV and AIDS education, health education. They then become trained, skilled health educators. And so therefore that model that we're using is based upon a civic engagement model.
Gotcha.
That pretty much Denver uses as well as Seattle.
Well, if there are any other models from any other cities and or states that we can learn from, we would much appreciate that.
Certainly, New York has a model in terms of Housing Works. They have a very specific model that it deals with housing and individuals living with HIV and AIDS and the efforts around social entrepreneurship. So I certainly can provide that for the committee.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And Mr. Simon's here as well. All right, we're going to move that item forward. Next item will be item number 13. This is a communication for the County of Los Angeles Department of Auditor Controller relative to the quarterly accounting of funds reports for the Olive View Medical Center for the second and third quarters, fiscal year 2010, 2011. Mr. Reyes, Mr. Weston, we're okay on that? So we're going to go forward on 7, on 13, send that to council. Let's call item number 8 right now.
Item number 8 is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Juan Ramos to the El Pueblo de Los Angeles Historical Monument Authority Commission.
Mr. Ramos, thank you very much. It's good to have you here, and tell us a little about yourself.
Thank you very much. I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, Boyle Heights. Currently live in downtown LA, and happy to serve the city.
Great. What high school did you go to?
Roosevelt High School.
A Rough Rider. Did you know Antonio? Did you see his trail of blazing through the corridors of East 4th Street?
I haven't met him, but
good. We're looking forward to your work there. Any questions?
Just want to say thank you. Thank you for stepping up.
Thank you very much.
Bring your passion. Bring it to that El Pueblo. Very good. We'll recommend approval.
Thank you very much.
When is this in council?
It's scheduled for council today.
Super, we'll see you in council, we'll give you a little more time.
It's scheduled for council today. However, there's going to be a request to continue this until May 3rd at the request of Councilmember Huizar.
Okay, all right, well, requested Mr. Weezer, okay.
I know we're rushing, and perhaps we can ask him, is there a statement you'd like to make? Is there something you'd like to share with the committee?
Yeah, I'm just eager.
Well, we're running out of time, I know you're eager, so we'll call him again. I hate to do that to you, I just want to get it, you know.
You waited.
I know, I got it. You feel comfortable, we'll give you all the time when you come.
Thank you very much.
Because there's another issue here that's also with the public, want to sit and listen. Item number 9.
Item number 9 was continued from the December 14, 2010 Arts, Health, and Parks meeting. This is a motion, Labange, Farhan, Huizar, relative to the renaming of the museum at the Italian Hall in the El Pueblo de Los Angeles Historical Monument as the Joseph R. Sorrell Italian American Museum.
Great. Mr. Andretti, would you want to give an opening remark? Just a brief one? Okay, from the Italian Hall, please introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Mariana Gaccia. I'm the Executive Director. I'm joined with board members Gardner Elner and Paul Pagnoni, our president.
Great. And also we have...
Steve Bullock, representing the Sorrell family.
Very good. How are we doing on all of this? What's your request?
Well, we ask that in accordance with the functions prescribed to the foundation and its agreement with the city, and in fulfillment of the foundation's mission, that the Board of Directors of the Italian American Museum of Los Angeles respectfully requests that discussions pertaining to the organization's name remain in the capable hands of the foundation. The foundation looks forward to working with the Sorrell family to honor the legacy of Joseph Sorrell, who was loved by all and a mentor to many.
Very good. Board members have anything they want to say?
We would just like to work with the Sorrell family, between the foundation and the Sorrell family.
Mr. Bullock?
We would like to also work with the foundation and the El Pueblo department and ask that you approve this motion, having us come back to you with recommendations about the most appropriate manner to recognize Joe and allow the museum to move forward.
And that's what the museum has requested. Any questions?
I don't sense any conflict.
Right, I understand, but I think they all want to work it out. So this is good. So we'll recommend that this, Mr. Andrade, will go back, ask the board to come with some recommendations of the Italian Hall and considering the proper recognition necessary to go forward. So that's our recommendation. Okay? Good? Very good? Okay, so unanimous on that. Thank you very much. And since you're sitting there, El Pueblo, your turn. Okay, thank you for coming down.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is a discussion of the El Pueblo de Los Angeles current budget, the department's submittal to the mayor's recently released 2011-2012 proposed budget, potential service impacts, possible restructuring of department operations, and other related matters.
Good morning, Robert Andrade. I would like to join that fivesome, by the way. I think that's a great idea.
All right, very good. Well, we
I've been invited. Current year budget, revenue will match expenditures. Projected out from April, we have we do not anticipate that there will be any need for us to go back to the city for any additional support. This is the first year in which the department has covered all its direct cost of about $1.6 million, all of general services direct cost of about $2.2 million, all of our unrelated costs, and a portion of GSD's related costs. We are, from a direct cost standpoint, completely off the general fund. This is the first year since 2000, I believe, that the department has the department's revenues have exceeded their expenditures, and I'm proud to say that with the staffing that we have. That's where we are in the current year. In the proposed mayor's budget, we work closely with the mayor's office, the CAO, et cetera. We have some issues that we would like to call your attention to. The first being that the proposed budget deletes 4 positions. They're all vacant, but because of the nature of substitute authorities, et cetera, we need to have those 4 positions, at least the positions themselves, restored. the funding for the senior MA1, which was brought to highlight by the 2004 controller audit, is a critical piece that we need to have. Absent that position and the funding for that position, we look for a potential layoff. We are down to 11 positions. The proposed
11 people at El Pueblo.
There are 11 people at El Pueblo.
And what was the highest you ever had there?
At one time, it was 20, on admin, at least 21 total.
21, very good.
So we are down substantially, if you will. So that's what we're asking for. The second piece is they have a 4% salary savings rate. That's equivalent to about $50,000. So we're underfunded, just like many departments are, but these are all dollars that we generate. We ask that the salary savings rate be eliminated. That will, again, allow us to maintain current authority. Without that elimination, we would be looking at another layoff as well. Additional salary savings, how we would meet those would be through the coalition of union members. If they approve the agreement, we benefit because general services, the way we would benefit is from the savings that are generated from that. So what we're asking for is the restoration of 4 positions that were eliminated, not the funding, just the funding for one position, and then the elimination of the.
And you would fund the other positions?
I'm sorry?
You would
If
fund.
we need to fill them, we will.
Got it.
fill them. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Mr. Wesson.
You would be welcomed
All right.
to the FIFSA. 2 requirements. You have to be on like a 24, see what happens, sometimes something comes up, a person doesn't show, so you have to be on 24-hour readiness.
Right.
And the second thing, the most important thing, is you can't be a sandbagger. You can't be a good golfer.
Who of us are?
And you've got to agree to creative scoring. And so like if I'm like 12 feet away, that's a gimme.
That's a gimme. You got it.
I have erasers on all my pencils.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Keep us
I
posted
get
on it.
unlimited motion.
Keep Mr. Weezer posted on it. Yesterday was a good day with Arts and Parks and Finance to move that issue forward. CEO's recommendation on rents. Thank you very much. Department of Aging is next.
Item number 1 is a discussion of the Department of Aging's current budget, the department's submittal for the mayor's recently released 2011-2012 proposed budget, potential service impacts, possible restructuring of department operations, and other related matters.
James Dunn, Assistant General Manager with the Department of Aging. With me is Gail Osborne, our Planning and Budget Director. The mayor's proposed budget actually is very supportive of senior services. As you may be aware, our primary funding is from Older American Act funds. We received a recent funding estimate from the California Department of Aging and is at the same level as the previous funding, so we're not anticipating any reductions in our major programs. We're still waiting on a funding notice for our jobs training program. There's a potential 25 to 45% reduction there. In terms of the city's budget, about $2.4 million is in general city purposes funds. Of that amount, the funding for our senior nutrition programs have not changed, so that's very good news, considering that hunger is a major issue in the city. However, there was a 35% reduction to our adult day and evidence-based program, about $256,000. The department, this was not unexpected. The department has been working with its contractors over the last couple of years to transition our adult day program to the evidence-based model. We saw it as an opportunity to actually improve services to the city. And under this transition, we were actually able to restore services to 2 of our areas, basically North Side by bringing back Assistance League, and also the West Wilshire side bringing back JFS to provide evidence-based services. And we actually anticipate serving more seniors with this funding than we did before.
I want you to keep me posted. Let me know what I can do and through this process.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much. That completes the agenda with except for the public comment card. Could I have Randy Kiefer, Joy McAdams, and Mr. Flores, is that correct? Join at the for public comment. Council's going to be in session in about 1 minute, so I'm going to give you a minute. Come on up, you can sit at the table. If you need a little more, hit it.
Hi, my name's Randy Kiefer, and I represent BACSAC, Student Advisory Committee at Barnesdall. And my main concern is the security up there, the lack of security. We have a serious issue. We have one shift covered from 11 to 7, but we need more because we're having a lot of tagging. We have gangs up there, and we've had a lot of complaints from the families, from the students, the kids. We have kids and adults up there, of course, and we're getting a lot of, we have safety issues up there. And that's one of my number one concerns is the security issue and the liabilities of that. And so hopefully you'll take that in consideration.
Put your phone number on here, Randy, so we can follow up and call on it.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Hi.
Hi there. Jerry McAdams. I'm the Executive Director of 24th Street Theater in Councilmember Reyes' district. And I just want to commend the mayor on the DCA budget, the Cultural Affairs budget. It has cuts. We'd rather not have them in the arts community. We're already on a shoestring with the Cultural Affairs budget, but we understand the pain has to be spread around, and we think it's reasonable. And I know you're kind of in the choir, Mr. Lamage, but I want to just urge you to...
I don't know if I'd make the choir, but I am in the choir.
But I want to urge you to spread to the other council members that, these are public safety dollars. They're not, this is not throwing money to the artists. This is money that keeps kids out of gangs. It keeps arts education going. We've raised, my organization alone, little $400,000 a year organization with 4 staff. We've raised $500,000 in the last 2 years and given that directly to LA Unified for arts programs. I mean, that's a huge amount compared to the entire Cultural Affairs budget.
Right.
And mine's not the only organization doing this. So these are important dollars.
Thank you very much.
Hi, good morning. My name is Abraham Flores. I live in Boyle Heights. I am also the advocacy manager for Arts for LA. I lived most of my life in Boyle Heights. I'm raising my son there. I'm actually staying in Boyle Heights. The arts are actually transforming my neighborhood. The Department of Cultural Affairs has nurtured the arts in my community, funding outdoor festivals through the local Chamber of Commerce, funding arts education through the grants to Inner City Arts. So I'm here as a parent, as an arts advocate, to ask the committee to support the mayor's budget proposal regarding the Department of Cultural Affairs. We know there's difficult budget decisions, but we think it's instrumental for healthy communities and for the local economy. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you both for coming down. I appreciate it. There's no further cards in front, Madam City Attorney.
We have one more.
Okay, I got to get to City Council, please, right now. Thank you. Edith, Alberta. Excuse me, Edith.
Hi, yeah, Edith Abeda. I just wanted to say that we want to thank the council for reinstating the Barnesdall Park back to the people of Los Angeles, but we also want to bring up issue with some cuts to the Los Angeles Municipal Art Gallery staff. And I know you're in a hurry, but I just want to say that it's crucial that all the staff remain there and there's no cuts. They've already lost staff in the last year through the ERIP. So
Thank you very much, and I appreciate that. All agenda items taken care of. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all.